international business. I feel like I heard people give my class sections today. It was nice. You've gotten the crash course in international business this morning. And now what this panel is going to do is to really bring it home as people who are in the trenches with you. And I thought about the University of California, Irvine. We are actually a provider of workforce development, continuing education. We have programs that help build the ecosystem for innovation and international activities in partnership with our community. We are also in the trenches with you. If I was to describe myself using business language, I am the Chief International Officer of a $2.5 billion company that is deeply embedded internationally, with international students as clients and an international supply chain and partnerships in the researchers and the research partnerships we have with universities all around the world. And so what we're going to do as a panel today is bring to life the lessons that were described to you this morning. So I'm going to start off with Ken. And I've got different questions for everybody because we do represent different kinds of businesses. So Ken, if you don't mind kicking off, maybe a little bit about your core business and then how you are engaged internationally in your business.
Well, Edwards Life Sciences, you might have heard in the introduction, for Lee, medical device company based in Irvine, roughly 3,000 employees in Irvine, probably 8,000 globally. Our primary product line right now is heart valves, both the traditional surgical heart valve, open heart surgery, but what really is taking off right now is our transcatheter heart valve, entirely new, game-changing technology where you replace your aortic valve simply through a catheter, you run it up your femoral artery, pop it in your aortic valve, and you go home the next day or 2 days later, and you're completely ready to go. Totally revolutionary. So that was actually, just to take on that one and talk about exporting, when you have a completely disruptive technology, literally when you think about it, we're replacing surgeons. You no longer have to have open heart surgery. And you have something that's very revolutionary that countless numbers of people have said, it's impossible to do that. You can't do that, it just isn't going to work. So as we started to develop it, one of the big challenges we had is we rolled this out commercially, and we started out in Europe. We didn't start in the US because it was easier us actually to export to Europe because of the regulations there. You get something called CE marking, which says, is this product safe? Yes or no? And we could prove that it was safe, so they said, Edwards, okay, you're good to go. We can launch in Europe. But to build on what Tracy was saying, what Jim was saying, what Mark was saying, we had to have a plan. We had to make sure that in a medical device product that we could go to, we'll call it mature country, because we needed reimbursement, we needed access to databases, and we needed to have an infrastructure that supported it and understood the rigor it took. Because we only had one shot to launch the product and have it be safe and have it be effective. If it wasn't safe, it wasn't effective, we would be shut down. So in this export, the challenge we have is working with Germany, in this case, to find the right type of hospitals that would partner with us, that would put the rigor behind it to launch a very revolutionary, game-changing technology. That's one of the things that we learned, that every time we went to a new country, we couldn't speed up. We had to replicate that process of putting the rigor in the hospital, the rigor in the payment session, the payment physicians, and the rigor in getting the right kind of customers and access to the patients that we needed.
It's a fabulous example of it's actually a medical device would be one of the most complicated things to export, given the grave consequences and the different ways that different countries would protect the health of their own populations. I love that you were talking a little bit about identifying partners who helped you through that process locally, country by country. Yeah, very helpful, and that local expertise that helps you. Can you tell a little bit about that? How did you find the partners in those places? Who was going to be the people helping you?
Yeah, we found that was critical, and I'll just pick on China right now. We're going into China. Huge market, intense regulatory process, lots of risk, lots of opportunities. So the example I'm going to use is a company called UPS. believe it or not. As we're going into China, we're expanding our transcatheter heart valves. We need a different type of license. It takes an intense process to get through the Chinese government to get approval for various types of licenses. So our core competency is innovation. We're good at logistics, but what we're really good at logistics is finding really good logistics partners. So in this case, we're working with UPS in China, and they are doing 100% of getting our license with the Chinese government, setting up our logistics to our standards, and as part of our process is to make sure the partner can meet our standards. UPS can, and we're doing all the partnering with the folks at UPS to deliver that for us. So we can stay focused on innovation, and they're delivering the logistics for us.
Fabulous. Something we can all take away with us, right? Very practical. Gianna, let me ask you a little bit. Why don't you tell us about your company and how you made a decision to be international and in your sales?
Well, first of all, I'm very honored to be here today and to share some of our successful.
I think you need the microphone closer to your mouth. Just hold it close to your mouth.
Okay. We're very proud to receive the Presidential E-Award yesterday in Washington among myself with our CEO and VP of International Affairs, where they accepted the award presented by U.S. Department of Commerce, Secretary of Commerce, Penny Pritzker. And there are now my VP and CEO are off to South Africa. And our company is located in Irvine and was founded by Dr. Obaji, a renowned dermatologist. He finds and delivers innovative skincare, regimen for melasma, acne, and hyperpigmentation. And we expanded in our international department in 2011 with only 8 contracted networks, which service to 33 countries around the world. Between 2011 and 2015, we grew to 106 countries, and we're looking forward to increase to 120 countries in 2016.
May I follow up on that point? How do you decide when you were getting started? I think a lot of people in this room are at the point of thinking, do I want to expand internationally? Is that going to be a good move for me? Or how fast, how many? Can you tell a little bit about those choices that you made as a company?
Oh yes, definitely go for it. But you have to do your diligent homework with research and marketing, and it's well worth it. For us, the difficulty is for going to the countries such as Europe, where hydroquinone is banned. So with our R&D team, we have to come up with alternative to find something that we can fit into the market or retrofit some of their products, such as our northern border friend neighbor, Canada and southern Mexico. We have to reformulate to remove some of the ingredients to fit into those markets.
So let me ask, when you were talking about research,
Yes.
this is sometimes a challenge for a small business. Where do I get access to information? I can't hire the very expensive consultants who are going to do a lot of independent market research for me all around the world. What were the sources you used? U.S. Department of Commerce offers some services, et cetera, but what were the ones that you particularly used?
Yes, I would say give all the credit to U.S. services with Jim Mayfield and our friend Mary Avis.
This was not planned.
Yes, they have helped us to partner up with many of the partners around the world who believe in our concept to deliver innovative skincare.
That's fabulous. As a professor of international business, that's one of the challenges, is where is the access to? Each company is different. A general information about, oh, China is growing or China is contracting, that's not enough when it's your company, your business, your particular product. And so really, I'm going to add a plug for taking advantage of those research sources that are available to help you know about your particular, as you were saying, Ken, the core business. What do you do? Where is that going to be welcomed, and how can you make that entry?
If I can just jump in on that, the comment that she made about material content, if you have any kind of product that's going to have, any kind of material content, you know, plastics or chemicals, those regulations outside the US change almost on a weekly basis. And you have to know them, you have to know everything about them. We find that countries, in particular in Scandinavia, Finland there'll be a regulation that the EU has passed that says this is going to go into effect in July of 2018, but Finland goes, oh, not in Finland, it's going to go July of 16. And you have to know that because you pay the consequences if you don't. And there are agencies both in the US and in Europe, and they're private firms as well, that will help you understand all the banned materials and substances now and in the future, because you're right, you have to be on top of that or your product will get kicked out of the market and you're going to pay some fines.
And ingredient by ingredient, item by item, the packaging, the words on the
That
package.
is correct. For example, in Europe, we have a product called acne treatment, but in Europe, acne is considered prescription, and it takes about 2 years to register. So we have to change the word blemish treatment for them to be able to accept, and we can import it almost immediately.
So you're not a medical product at that point, you're a cosmetic product.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. A very smart way to get around an extra 2 years of delay.
Yes.
Let me turn to Jim now. And Jim represents the Port of Los Angeles, which is, in export terms, it would be a service business, and the international clients would be counted in Jim Mayfield's statistics as part of export of services. But I wanted to ask a couple of specific questions, and maybe first you could share with us a little about the current state of the port, the type of goods moving in and out, things like that that are describe your core business.
Well, if I had another 3 hours, I think I'd probably take a good crack at that. But I'll try to sum it up in a nutshell. I think telling a little bit of a story, let's go back 15 years ago. I think 15 years ago, as you know, the ships, when they come to the port, they're full. And currently, when they leave the port, they're 50% full. So selfishly, we'd like to see the planes, and also speaking on behalf of my good colleagues at the airport, we'd like to see the air cargo planes filled when they leave. So that's a triple win for everybody. So that's our motivation. So the good news is that 15 years ago, only 25% of the export-bound ships were loaded. So there has been a success by President Obama's National Export Initiative, and we have been able to, in our region, increase from 25% up to a 50% load factor. So we have been able to make great advances, but we're very selfish and we'd like to see the ships completely filled. Now, turning to today, last year was a difficult year. For 4 years, we had record exports and record imports of air and sea cargo in Southern California until last year. And there were several problems last year. Of course, Jim Mayfield referred to the strong U.S. dollar. We also had a labor management slowdown, which fortunately has been resolved. We have 6 years of labor peace now. But we also have increasing competition from other gateways. And of course, we've had a slowdown from China that's led to, as was mentioned, commodity prices going down. So that's kind of a little bit of a perfect storm we had. But the good news is that after a decrease last year, statistically for our region, we have seen an uptick in the first 4 months of this year. So I'm very pleased about that. So both imports and exports in the first 4 months have gone up. So this is a good news story. And I'm glad to see
Jim, there's your current data. We don't have to wait for the statistics to come out. We've got it live.
It's hot off the press. That's what it is. So the first 4 months, imports were up about 3%, and exports were up about 2.5%. And that's quite something because Jim Mayfield said, well, what the heck are we going to do to try to help our exports? We're facing a strong U.S. dollar, but there's an indication after a decrease last year, we're starting to come up. So that's a positive story, I think.
Absolutely.
I think the best way we can increase our market is, as was mentioned, diversify our markets internationally, give the capacity for our small and medium-sized businesses to export. And additionally, we've got to support the TPP. The TPP could be a revolution for our region. Do you know who the major beneficiary of the TPP is in terms of cargo in the United States? Only one area, right here. Southern California is the major gateway to Asia and the west coast of Latin America. there. So if we can get TPP passed, we'll be able to boost that 2.5%.
We're all got our homework. Our assignment is clear. Thank you. Ken, I was curious if you would be able to sort of take us behind the scenes at Edwards Lifesciences. When you were, you had a product, you've got a good hold in the domestic market, you've got a strategic advantage in your product, but what was the conversation behind the scenes about should we, shouldn't we, how should we? I think some of the people in the room might be at that stage, and that might be a helpful story to know from someone who's been very successful.
Yeah, our revenue today is 50% outside of the U.S. Our population base is patients that have heart disease, and that's a global epidemic. So we have to go global. So the discussion that we had wasn't, if we're going to go global. It was more about the how and the timing. And again, for us, being a medical device company, getting regulatory approval, having a pathway to get the country to accept the product, be it the surgical heart valve, the open heart surgery, or the new transcatheter heart valve. And then it was putting a strategy in place that says, let's not go to the biggest market. The biggest market out there is China, but it's also very unstructured. It's very risky around IP. So we wanted to go where we felt we had the highest likelihood of success. And success to us in our business means partnering with the medical community, partnering with the regulatory community and the government to accept, in this case, a disruptive technology. So we went down the path of least resistance and then was able to demonstrate the effectiveness and the safetyness of our product. And in fact, today we issued a press release about the safety aspects and the clinical success of our SAPIEN 3 in Europe, just off the charts positive. And getting those kinds of things that then open the doors in other countries and makes us more accepting to get into other countries. So it clearly laid out strategy that built on one country, one region after another. And now we're at the point we're looking much more into emerging markets, China in particular, and the challenges are there. It's 3 years, we're talking about approval processes. It's a 3-year approval processes. And China will change regulations midstream. Literally, you're doing it right today, but you come in Monday and now you're not, and you have to change. You have to be concerned about IP. When we file in China, they ask for a lot of our proprietary information. So you have to have that debate. How much do you want to give up that's required in a filing? What are the risks? How do you protect yourself? So it really becomes an evolution as you go. So it makes it fun.
and you've been successful at it. So I'm wondering, having gone from that time of figuring out, it sounds like you all just knew you wanted to be global because you had there was a global need for your product. So it sounds like from the beginning you knew you're going to build domestically. And then I thought what was interesting in what you said is that you didn't go for the toughest place and say, okay, we're going to do the hardest one first and everything else is going to be easy and we're going to have that waterfall effect. Instead, where's the place we're going to have early success? Where are we going to be successful first? And let's start there and build our experience someplace that's easier instead of that hardest place. That's a really interesting choice, and again, I think something we can think about in our own businesses. Tell me a little bit about how you see today, or maybe through the growth of your company, the cost benefit of being international compared to just being a domestic company. Because it certainly costs more, and it's tougher to be international.
It costs more and the opportunities are more, so it's that trade-off. We talked about the strong dollar, and I think somebody earlier said, gee, comment on the strong dollar. We have some mitigation strategies around hedging, but in our case now that we're big enough, as Lee said in an intro, we're in 100 different countries. So we're able to kind of offset the different currency differences there to help with that. But I think Edwards overall, it's incredibly clear that we have to be global. It's kind of in our DNA, it's our foundation. We will go everywhere. We've actually got approval to sell in Iran. We can legally now sell product into Iran. We're ready to go in Cuba. We're approved for Cuba. It's seeing those opportunities, but it's building on the foundation and being very rigorous in our approach and not going too fast and just trying to get there too quickly.
And for a company with as much success as you've had, I think that's amazingly disciplined. That you don't say, we're good at this, let's just go. That you're still pacing your approach. Again, good lessons for us. Gianna, maybe you'd like to talk about the success story of Zeo and how you expanded.
Oh, yes. Well, again, even though there are two countries in the same continent, for example, Asia, but you have to do your homework diligently. Like Indonesia, it's totally different with Hong Kong. So with our team of international, we do research how to get compliant into those countries and which countries we can emphasize in first. We have support from our U.S. commercial services that take us, partner up with all the distributors around the world today.
If you were to, say, sit in a room with someone and tell a story to your grandkids. This is what I did when I was a young woman. What does the story feel like in terms of who are the key actors, who are the people involved, what are the particular skills that they contributed, how did it happen?
Okay, that would say Dr. Obaji, the founder of our company, he believes in education. So he appears in mass media around the world just to educate about the skin health. That is, he is revolutionizing and coining the term skin health. And educate physician, because our product is by physician dispense channel only. So training, seminars around the world. So that's why today he's in South Africa. And he just came back from Dubai and Italy to do a symposium just basically on education about his products and how to train physicians. That's how we become successful internationally.
And this is fascinating because the strategy, your market entry strategy, is not an open distribution channel through retail outlets. You've got the complication of deciding to go through doctors.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, especially since you made the choice earlier not to be considered a pharmaceutical product, but to be a cosmetic product?
It's cosmetic, but it's in the pharmaceutical grade. That's why we believe that to train the patient is through the doctor's channel to make sure that they use the products appropriately.
You know, I just think this is so smart. When you think about what is your product, it's a medically advanced product. You've decided to say that this is part of your core marketing position, is that you're a medically advanced product in care for skin through science, research, doctors. And so to get that credibility, not through broad mass advertising, but through the people who speak about medical, that's a difficult strategy to implement, but makes so much sense. Do you have to adapt that somewhat in different countries, or is that something that's pretty universal, the respect for the doctor and the...
Yes, in some countries the doctors cannot write prescription, so we have to go through the pharmacy channel instead.
If I can build on that, Gianna's making a good point. No matter what your product is, even if it's a bottle of water that you're selling, in different cultures, in different countries, the culture is different, be it around regulations or just the sales and marketing of it. As an example, in Japan, if you're going to get a transcatheter heart valve, the one you put in your femoral artery and you go home in 2 days, there's a panel of probably 10 doctors that meets, and they meet with you, and they evaluate you to make sure that you can handle this procedure and it's the right thing for you, it's the right thing for the hospital. If you're in Germany today and they decide you need a transcatheter valve, you're probably in the cath lab the next day or the next week, and you get it. And you need to understand, again, be it a water bottle or a heart valve, you need to understand the local markets in terms of regulation and marketing, because that can make or break you. And then you have to adjust your business plans and your commitment and your resources accordingly. We commit an awful lot of resources to Japan right now, but we know that is going to be a huge market for us in terms of the number of people, and it's got a good profit margin as well. But it's taken an incredible commitment from Edwards to do that, where other countries, we can still have that rigor, but culturally, the whole approach is very different. Made a really good point on that.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to turn back to Jim now, and one of the things that the port, in addition to selling its own services, you also help other businesses expand and manage their own import-export. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, as I said, very selfishly, we would like to see the ships be full when they leave, similar to my colleagues at the airport with their cargo freighters. So about 2007, we tried to initiate a program to create these services in a very simple platform, in a very kind of speed dating way around Southern California. Half of our cargo flows from or to Southern California, so it's an extremely big market for us. So what we basically do is try to bring some of the great services that we're so fortunate to have here in Irvine with the United States Export Assistance Center. So you have all these agencies just literally down the road. But we try to go to, whether it's Imperial County or, because we don't actually compete with the ports of San Diego or the Port of Miami. So we go to all the counties in Southern California. And you can just imagine the rich potential in, for example, in Kern County, and with agriculture and food products, or in San Luis Obispo, or Santa Barbara with wines, or with, actually literally thousands of products, which California is a leader in a number of key areas. So basically, we just bring our colleagues and friends with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Small Business Administration, the Exim Bank, as well as a team with the Freight Forwarders Association, and as well as the Bar Association, and other partners. And we basically just give a quick introduction through local chambers, especially ethnic chambers, economic development agencies, and actually anybody who will give us a platform for a 3-hour introductory program, which turns out to be primarily for new export entrepreneurs and small companies. And so because of demand, we developed an additional program about 4 years ago called Export University in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Commerce and the District Export Council. And what that basically is instead of just 3 hours, we have 10 sessions every 2 weeks, on one session every 2 weeks on a different subject, whether it be logistics or documentation or export finance. So it's a more in-depth look at things. And this year we developed a new program called TradeX, which is sort of a combination of Shark Tank and TED, where we have a 12-minute presentation by an innovative new product, and then an export panel of our partners commenting on it. But although it's a friendly Shark Tank.
I like it. Friendly Shark Tank. So there's an oxymoron in there. I want to really thank our panelists today. The idea, the organizers as well, because pulling this morning together, to have people giving you step by step how to get there, and then to have people who have experience, who have success, this feels to me like a very powerful World Trade Week. I know we're going to have to wait a year for this to happen again, but by this time next year, how many countries will you be selling your product to? Please thank the panelists.